Welcome back to Co's Q. Thank you for joining me today, and got a real treat, something we've looked forward to doing for, I don't know, at least the last month and a half. When we were fasting, couldn't have any rising bread is what I gave up, and all I could think about was one of the Malcolm Reed videos where he did the McRib, and we actually created that just, I want to say probably about 3 or 4 months ago, and if you haven't done one and you don't know how to do it, watch this video or either watch Malcolm's, and I'll tell you, it's really a treat. It is something we're really looking forward to. I already got the smoker fired up outside because it is a little bit of a longer cook anytime you're dealing with ribs. If you're trying to get them to perfect tenderness, we're going to score the meat, which I'm going to show you that. Also, we put it where the bones will actually have an opportunity to pull out basically almost on their own because you want to put the slit right beside the bone, and we'll get to that. But please join me, and I look forward to showing you how to do this, and I even more so look forward to tasting it. All right, what we have here is just shy of a 3.5 pound baby back rib rack. It looks pretty good as far as the trimming is concerned. Really not much to do here. A lot of this will render out, but I might trim it up just a little bit because this is going to be in sandwich form. So you don't really want any leftover unrendered fat. And the thicker these fat pieces are, we'll often have a tougher time on a lower temp. But all in all, it's really not that bad at all. Main thing we're going to be doing here is flipping it over and getting the bones set up to where they'll come out. And you'll have a boneless, beautiful baby back co-rib for a sandwich. So I know a lot of y'all have seen, well, you know, unless you've just now stumbled across smoking meats and cooking food, grilling. Most people that search these videos already know the technique as far as pulling the membrane off. I've actually never done it. I've always done this method here with a sharp enough knife. I just do sort of a checkerboard effect, because once you break that down with the heat, it's going to pull away and in some cases melt away, because it's just a very, very thin membrane. It's a tough membrane, but if you score it, it weakens it considerably, almost to the point of nothing. And if you see these bones right here, I'm actually going to flip it around because that side's a little high. If you see here where the bones are, you want to put a little nick in them right beside it. Right beside the bone. Not on both sides, just one side. Because they're gonna find a way to pull away from the meat as everything starts to render. And so when they start exposing themselves, you know you're getting close to the rib being done, which is what you look for if you're not doing if you don't have a thermopan or something like that. That's almost its own way of showing, hey, I'm getting done here. You might want to check me. And of course, you can always do the tender test by poking the meat and seeing just how easy it is to go in there. But you see that? See how the lines are very visible right beside the bone. And so when this thing renders, it's just going to pull, and you can just basically grab it just like that. So I'm just going to do a few more scores. She's going to be good to go. These pieces here, you don't have to do a whole bunch because at the ends, they'll they're often pulling themselves off. Actually, there we go. All right. Now we're going to add a little bit of a binder. I know this looks a little different than most mustards because I'm using French's honey. Not sure if it adds any true element of flavor, but the sugar's kind of mending with the meat and the seasonings. I would assume that there is a little bit of assistance there in flavor. Just how mustard tastes in general, you would imagine there has to be an element of flavor when you use it as a binder, but most people say there isn't. But you know, you agree to disagree, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. This is just our all-purpose seasoning I put together just from an old bottle that was pepper by itself. A little combination of garlic, fresh ground, and kosher salt. Works well. It's easy to put together, but I mean, you can buy any labeled brand and a lot more convenient, obviously, but I just like putting that stuff together. Make sure that's in there. Now this side here, I'm not going to do much of over seasoning except for right here where this is, seems like it's sort of bent up. That right there is going to get the same seasoning that the top part of the rib wrap will get. And that's how to barbecue right. The barbecue rub. Y'all know about that. Hard not to. As popular as that guy is right now. Alrighty. We're going to flip this over. Reapply some more mustard. Honey mustard, that is. I'm not going to heavy coat that salt and pepper. Of course, it has quite a bit of pepper in it. There's more pepper in it than actually kosher salt, but I don't want it to be too salty because we're going to sauce it up at the end, obviously, because a McRib is supposed to be saucy. And yes, if anybody's asking, if you did see the other video, that sauce I made will be what we're putting in on this. So I'm really looking forward to that. All right, so apply the barbecue rub. Now I would normally go a lot heavier in this, but like I just said, with us using the sauce at the end on the sandwich, I do not want to put too much. And this is a little bit of a secret weapon here, along with the next thing I'm going to put on there. If you haven't tried some form of maple rub, it can be a little bit sweet overpowering, so be very careful with that. But and it adds a little a level of flavor. You know, I like layers, just like the other video explained, and just don't put too much of it because it can be overwhelming. Now, this is something I come across the other day on a video that I had no clue even existed, but watch as I apply it. Now, you have to pat it down so it'll stick onto the meat, because it will bounce off even if you have some form of binder on there. And that's okay. It's relatively cheap. It comes in 2 in a pack. Smoked black garlic. I'd look into it. It's a great dynamic flavor adder. I'll just pat that in. Yep, it's time to wash the hand. All right, we're walking out here to the Oklahoma Joe's Pit Barrel Smoker. I guess just barrel smoker, because Pit Barrel's a whole different company, but got a little bit of a combination going on here. I know you can't see there because I have the heat shield up because we're about to throw the ribs on, but we're using a combination of maple, hickory, and I think one little small piece of the whiskey barrel, which can be very, very overwhelming. And you don't want a lot of dirty smoke, and that can provide that if you put too much of that in there, and we don't want that. It makes the meat smell a little bit rancid with smoke, and that's no good. So, yep, that's what we're using today, the Oklahoma Joe's Barrel Smoker. All right, so now we have the ribs on. They're going to go on the Oklahoma Joe's for roughly I want to say a solid probably 2.5 hours, maybe even a little bit more before we probably wrap them. At that point, we'll put them in some aluminum foil, and there'll be some other stuff like the butters, and then a little bit of a concoction that I use that most people, I haven't even seen anybody else's cabinet, but I did see it used on one of the other videos, and I look forward to showing you that here in just a few more minutes on the video. But we're going to head out. We're going to get us some lunch. You can do that with the Oklahoma Joe Bronco. It does allow you the opportunity to set in a temp. Just prior to this, you've probably seen that the temperature was just shy of 200 degrees. It's on the way up. That heat shield can sometimes block the thermal gradient where the actual temp probe is for the Oklahoma Joes. I don't use a separate one. I just kind of eyeball it and go from there. I have used separate probes to monitor the temp outside of what the grill gives you when it comes out of the packaging. But in this case, I don't think it's needed because it's going to be well monitored once we get back from lunch sometime. It's roughly about 11 o'clock. We're about to pill out now, and I'll be back here after I pick my son up from school, let's say about 3 o'clock. At that point, it should be ready to wrap, going for another hour or two to get the perfect tenderness, be able to pull the bone, and get that McRib sandwich going the way we like it. See you soon. Alrighty. Now it's time to see how it's looking. It's been on since 11:30, 11 o'clock or so. Got up to 255. It's a little dark because of, under this cover. Yeah, some really good flavor. Yep, tack it up. Probably time to spray it down and get her wrapped soon after. Perfect tackiness. Exactly what you're looking for. At least at this stage of the cook. So I'm going to be introducing this, the Bee's Knees Spicy Honey. And don't let it fool you. It's honey, but it's way more spicy than honey. Way more. So I'll use it in a few weeks. I don't use as much butter as some do, and that's okay, because it's going to be saucy at the end. So we're going to lock in them flavors. You notice we flipped it upside down. So now we're going to put the meat side facing the heat. All right. With that. Now, a lot of people put some sauces in there with it already. You can do that, but if you remember, we're making a McRib. These aren't eating ribs in the sense that you're just going to be eating them with the bone. So in this case, we're just going to do what we just did, and then we'll sauce it up at the end. So we're sort of in that 3-2-1 territory as far as time frame. Could cook a little quicker than that, but I'm gonna make sure that this stays on in the aluminum foil for at least a solid hour before I start checking the tenderness. That's perfectly fine. I don't want it to steam out. We'll take it back out on the grill. Alrighty. So we've got the ribs out of the wrap. They've been wrapped up for about 2 hours. Let's see, a lot of the moisture has started to release from the rib, which means there's most certainly some bone separation going on. Look at that. Looks good. Now, it is pretty hot, obviously, so whew. All right, so normally I would put this back on the grill, and yes, I know y'all can't see my face, but I'm just making sure that you can see the meat. Normally I would put this back on the grill and let that baste kind of work into it a little bit. In this case, I'm going to use the pan. I'm right at that point where, you know, it could get too fall off the bone, and we don't want that. We want it to be a somewhat consistent, which it is more toward the middle. The outsides, they get a little weak because they're smaller. So I'm just going to sauce this up, and I'm actually just going to toss this in the oven. Now, just because you use your oven on a smoke doesn't mean it isn't done the right way. The reason behind that is because a lot of times, you know, either your cooker, if you got charcoal and your cooker, you're using a certain amount of charcoal, it only lasts for so long. But once it gets wrapped, it's not absorbing any more smoke whatsoever. And I'm sure a lot of you already know that. But you know what? That was new to me just a few years ago when I really got into this. So that was good to know that I could utilize the oven to make it a more successful cook. You know, if it wasn't what I needed to be outside, you know, and especially on windy days and stuff like that, it can make it tough. So I did have this aluminum to go on that to take it outside and let it rest on that. But at the moment, we're just going to put this in the oven at a low temp of about 170 and just let this barbecue just kind of rest on the ribs, and we'll eventually be able to take the bone out. So we'll see you in a second. Alrighty, and here we are at the point to where we have the ribs fully deboned, about to go onto the bread roll. It's already separated, mayonnaise on, some pickles, some onions, a little bit of a drizzle, and we'll see how it tastes. Goodness, that was wonderful. It was good. It was a little drier than what I normally produce with that cook. So I mean, just to be straight up front and honest, it's just one of those things. The timing's everything, and I think I cooked it just a little bit too long, but it was still really, 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 really good. Better than any McRib that you're going to have at a McDonald's or somewhere like that that tries to produce a similar product. And you feed the whole family for, I don't know what I paid for this, maybe 16 bucks, 3.5 pounds. Bones come out perfectly. Had a few little ends that had come off, and the wife was pointing that out. And that's good, because you need to know that if it gets to the point where it is somewhat overcooked, it'll do that. You know, some of the bone will splinter off, so you got to be very cognizant of that. And but that's okay. That's all right. You know, it's a learning process. I mean, you're not going to get it right completely right 100% of the time. Nailed it before. This was really, really good. The sauce is wonderful as always. You can go watch that video, and that's the prior one to this one. See how to put that together. That really, really sets that off. But yeah, that's a good looking sandwich. It's hearty, so make sure you got an appetite. That's all I got to say. But hey, it's fun. Just trying different things, and that's what it's all about. So join me next time. Coach Q. Thanks.